What happens when a celebrated British actor known for his dry wit and restraint is challenged live on air and decides not to let it slide? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. Sunny leans forward slightly, cards in hand, the studio lights reflecting off the desk as the audience settles after the intro applause. Hugh Grant sits across from her, relaxed at first, legs crossed, hands folded, that familiar half-smile on his face. Whoopi glances over, sensing the energy shift already. Sunny says, calmly but pointed, "Hugh, you've been very open in recent interviews about being uncomfortable with certain changes in the industry. Some people feel those comments come off as dismissive, even out of touch. Do you understand why?" Hugh blinks once, still polite. "I understand why people might say that, yes." Sunny doesn't let the silence breathe for long. "But when you say things like you miss how films used to be made, or that the culture feels restrictive now, critics argue that sounds like resistance to progress." A few murmurs ripple through the audience. Hugh's smile tightens just slightly. "Well, I think that's a rather broad interpretation." Joy jumps in, tilting her head. "But isn't that what you're implying? That things were better before?" Hugh turns toward Joy, nodding respectfully. "Not quite. What I'm saying is that creativity thrives on freedom, not fear. That's not nostalgia, it's observation." Sunny raises a hand gently, but firmly. "Except many would say the fear you're describing isn't real. It's accountability." There's a brief pause. Hugh inhales, then exhales through his nose. "With respect, that's incorrect." The audience reacts instantly, an audible "ooh" followed by scattered applause. Sunny's eyebrows lift. Whoopi leans back, interested now. Sunny responds, measured but sharper. "Incorrect how?" Hugh shifts forward in his chair. "Because accountability and fear are not the same thing. Accountability invites dialogue. Fear shuts it down." Whoopi interjects, voice calm but probing. "But Hugh, people who were ignored for years finally have a voice now. Isn't that a good thing?" "Of course it is," Hugh says quickly. "I'm not disputing that. I'm disputing the idea that questioning the atmosphere automatically makes one opposed to fairness." Sunny taps her cards lightly on the desk. "But when you say you're worried about saying the wrong thing, that suggests you don't want to be challenged." "No," he replies, a bit firmer now. "It suggests I don't want a single sentence taken out of context and turned into a moral verdict." The audience claps louder this time. Sunny waits it out, then leans in again. "Public figures are scrutinized. That comes with the job." Hugh nods. "Absolutely. And I've accepted that for decades. But scrutiny isn't the same as assuming bad faith." Joy crosses her arms. "So are you saying people are too sensitive now?" Hugh turns to her, eyes steady. "No, I'm saying people are too certain." A brief silence hangs. Even Sunny pauses. Whoopi breaks it with a low chuckle. "That's a line." The audience laughs, easing the tension for a moment. Sunny smiles thinly. "But certainty comes from lived experience, Hugh. When people say something hurts them, who are we to debate that?" "I'm not debating their feelings," he responds. "I'm debating the conclusions drawn about my intentions." Sunny's tone sharpens just a notch. "Intent doesn't erase impact." Hugh nods again, but this time slower. "True. But impact without intent still deserves conversation, not condemnation." Another wave of applause. Sunny holds up a hand. "Let me push back. When someone with your platform speaks, the impact is magnified. Shouldn't that mean extra care?" "Yes," Hugh says immediately. "And I take that care. But extra care shouldn't mean silence." The audience murmurs approvingly. Whoopi leans forward now. "So what are you asking for, Hugh?" "Grace." "I'm asking for nuance," he says. Which I realize isn't terribly fashionable. That earns laughter, including from Whoopi. Sunny smiles, but doesn't let go. Nuance can sometimes be a shield. Hugh's expression changes, still calm, but more serious. And sometimes it's just honesty. Sunny looks directly at him. "Do you think people criticizing you are being dishonest?" "No," he replies. "I think they're responding quickly. Emotionally. Which is human. But it doesn't make their conclusions accurate." Sunny opens her mouth to respond, but Joy jumps in. "But Hugh, you have to admit, you're not the one at risk here." Hugh turns to Joy, nodding. "I agree. I'm not. And that's why I listen. But listening doesn't mean agreeing with every interpretation of my words." The audience applauds again, louder this time. Sunny lets it play out, then says, "It sounds like you feel misunderstood." Hugh gives a small, wry smile. "I think most people do at some point." Whoopi laughs softly. Ain't that the truth? Sunny glances toward the camera briefly, then back to Hugh. But when you say incorrect to a point about accountability, that can feel dismissive. Hugh tilts his head. Only if disagreement is seen as disrespect. A few audience members clap immediately. Sunny pauses, clearly choosing her next words. This is live television, and people are watching who feel harmed by rhetoric they hear every day. Hugh nods, voice steady. And I'm aware of that, which is why I'm being careful now. But I won't accept being told I meant something I didn't. The tension is palpable now. Even the audience quiets. Whoopi steps in, palms open. All right, let's take a breath. We're going to keep talking about this, because clearly there's more to unpack. Sunny looks back at Hugh. There is, and we will. Hugh meets her gaze. I welcome it. The audience applauds as the camera pulls slightly wider, the energy in the room charged but controlled, the conversation far from over. The applause fades, but the tension doesn't. Sunny shifts in her chair, glancing briefly at Whoopi as if to silently confirm they're not done here. Hugh takes a sip of water, still composed, but his jaw is set now. The audience settles, sensing the conversation is about to deepen. Sunny resumes, voice steady but more deliberate. Hugh, when you say you won't accept being told what you meant, some viewers hear that as shutting down perspectives that don't align with yours. Hugh places the glass back on the table carefully. I don't believe acknowledging perspectives requires surrendering one's own. Joy leans forward, eyebrows raised. But isn't that exactly what people have been forced to do for years? Surrender their experiences because powerful voices didn't want to hear them. A small ripple of applause follows Joy's comment. Hugh nods slowly. That's fair, and history bears that out. But the remedy for being unheard shouldn't be making others afraid to speak. Sunny interjects quickly. Fear keeps coming up for you. Because it's present, he replies. Not everywhere, not all the time, but enough to notice. Sunny presses. Can you give a concrete example? Hugh hesitates just a second. I was once advised off the record not to answer a question honestly because it might be interpreted as ideological. Whoopi tilts her head. By who? Publicists, Hugh answers plainly. Not malicious people. Cautious ones. Joy scoffs lightly. That's show business. That's always been there. Yes, Hugh agrees. But the nature of the caution has changed. It's less about image and more about moral judgment. The audience reacts with a low murmur. Sunny raises her hand to slow things down. But moral judgment isn't inherently bad. No, Hugh says. But permanent moral judgment is. Sunny leans in. Are you saying people don't deserve to be held accountable long-term? I'm saying growth requires room, he responds. And room requires forgiveness. A woman in the audience claps loudly, followed by others. Sunny waits, then counters. Forgiveness is earned. Hugh meets her eyes. Agreed. But it can't be earned if there's no path back. Whoopi nods slightly, thoughtful. That's an interesting point. Sunny doesn't let it linger. But let me bring it back to you specifically. When people reacted strongly to your comments, did you consider apologizing? Hugh pauses. The room goes quiet. I considered clarifying. Sunny smiles faintly. That's not the same thing. No, Hugh says. It isn't. Because I wasn't sorry for what I meant. I was sorry for how it was received. The audience reacts, some applause, some discomfort. Sunny responds carefully. That distinction often frustrates people. I know, Hugh says. But pretending otherwise would be dishonest. Joy shakes her head. Sometimes honesty can be selfish. Hugh turns to her. And sometimes restraint can be cowardice. The audience audibly reacts. Whoopi lets out a sharp, okay, half laughing, half warning. Sunny raises her eyebrows. That sounded pointed. Hugh smiles thinly. It wasn't personal. It was philosophical. Sunny presses again. But you see how that can come off as dismissive, right? I see how it can be framed that way, he replies. I don't see how silence improves the conversation. Whoopi jumps in, voice warm but firm. Let me ask you this. If someone tells you your words hurt them, what's your responsibility in that moment? Hugh doesn't answer immediately. He looks down briefly, then back up. To listen. Fully. Without defensiveness. Sunny tilts her head. And after listening? To respond honestly, Hugh says. Even if that honesty is uncomfortable. Sunny exhales. That's where people get frustrated. Because honesty without adjustment can feel like refusal. Or integrity, Hugh counters. The audience splits, some clapping, some murmuring. Sunny lets it happen, then speaks over it slightly. Integrity for you might feel like dismissal to someone else. Hugh nods, which is why conversation matters more than declarations. Joy crosses her arms again. But you're still sitting in a position of safety. I am, Hugh agrees. And I don't deny that privilege. Sunny jumps on that. Then why not defer more often? Hugh looks genuinely puzzled. Defer to what? To voices that have been marginalized, Sunny answers. I do, Hugh says. I listen constantly. But listening doesn't require self-erasure. A hush falls again. Whoopi watches Hugh closely. You sound tired. Hugh lets out a quiet laugh. I think a lot of people are. Sunny softens slightly. Do you feel attacked? Sometimes, Hugh admits. But more often, I feel misunderstood. Joy interjects. Misunderstood by whom? By people who assume disagreement equals hostility, Hugh replies. Sunny looks at him for a long moment. You know, Hugh, some people watching hear you as someone afraid of losing relevance. The audience reacts strongly to that, gasps, murmurs, a few claps. Hugh's expression doesn't change much, but his tone does. I've been irrelevant before. I survived. Whoopi laughs out loud at that, clapping once. Fair enough. Sunny presses on. But relevance today comes with responsibility. Always has, Hugh says. The difference is now, mistakes aren't stepping stones. They're cliffs. The audience murmurs again. Sunny opens her mouth, then pauses, recalibrating. Do you think you've made mistakes? Absolutely, Hugh answers without hesitation. Joy jumps in quickly. Then why not just say, I messed up? Because that wouldn't be true in this case, Hugh responds calmly. Sunny exhales audibly. And that's the sticking point. Yes, Hugh agrees. Because disagreement has become evidence. Whoopi leans forward, hands clasped. Evidence of what? Of character, Hugh replies. Which is a dangerous shortcut. The audience applauds loudly now. Sunny lets it go a beat longer than before. Sunny then says, quieter but intense, you're asking for complexity in a world that runs on sound bites. Hugh smiles, almost sadly. I know. I chose the wrong venue. That draws laughter across the studio, even from Sunny, though she quickly reins it in. Well, Sunny says, you're here now and we're not done. Hugh nods. I gathered. Whoopi looks toward the camera briefly, then back to the table. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, this conversation is going to get even more real. The audience applauds as the music cue begins, the tension unresolved, the debate clearly heading somewhere deeper. The music fades and the applause swells again as the cameras return. The energy is different now, less polite, more charged. Sunny sits upright, hands folded, expression serious. Hugh adjusts slightly in his chair, no longer smiling but still composed. Whoopi scans the table, already anticipating the clash. Whoopi starts, voice even. All right, we're back. And before the break, things got lively. The audience chuckles nervously. Sunny jumps in without delay. Hugh, during the break, we were talking about responsibility versus intention. And I want to go further, because a lot of people feel conversations like this always center the discomfort of those with power. Hugh nods slowly. I've heard that criticism. Sunny continues. When you focus on fear, your fear, it can sound like you're equating it with the lived fear of people who've been marginalized. A wave of murmurs moves through the audience. Hugh takes a breath. I'm not equating them. Sunny raises an eyebrow. But you keep returning to it. Because it exists, he replies. Not in the same magnitude. Not in the same consequences. But it's there. Joy leans in sharply. That sounds like false equivalence. Hugh turns to her. It would be, if I were comparing outcomes. I'm not. I'm comparing environments. Sunny interrupts. But environments are created by power. Yes, Hugh says. And they can be altered by culture. Whoopi tilts her head. So what role do you think you play in altering it? Hugh pauses. By speaking honestly. And by listening when I'm wrong. Sunny responds quickly. But who decides when you're wrong? The facts, Hugh says. The audience reacts immediately. Some applause, some groans. Sunny leans forward. Feelings matter too. They do, Hugh agrees. But feelings aren't facts. A louder reaction this time. Whoopi lifts her hand. Okay. Let's not turn this into a slogan contest. Sunny presses on. When you say that, it can sound dismissive of emotional truth. Hugh keeps his voice level. Emotional truth explains reaction. It doesn't define reality. Joy shakes her head. That's a very academic way of avoiding accountability. Hugh looks at her. Or a precise way of maintaining it. Sunny interjects sharply. You keep framing yourself as reasonable while others are emotional. I haven't said that, Hugh responds. But you're implying it, Sunny says. Hugh exhales. You're inferring it. The audience lets out a collective, oh. Whoopi smiles despite herself. Careful, Hugh. Sunny sits back slightly. Let me ask you directly. Do you think cancel culture exists? Yes, Hugh answers without hesitation. Gasps and applause erupt simultaneously. Sunny doesn't wait for it to die down. Define it. Hugh leans forward. A social mechanism where punishment is applied without proportionality or due process. Sunny counters instantly. People would say it's consequences. Sometimes, Hugh agrees. Other times, it's exile. Joy snaps. No one is owed a platform. Hugh turns to her calmly. Agreed. But no one deserves public execution for imperfect phrasing. The audience reacts strongly. Whoopi leans in. But you're still working. You're still here. Yes, Hugh says. Because I'm fortunate. Many aren't. Sunny nods. Then why spend so much time defending the fortunate? I'm defending principles, Hugh replies. They apply to everyone. Sunny leans in, voice quieter but more intense. It doesn't always look that way. Hugh meets her gaze. Because optics have replaced intent. Sunny exhales sharply. Intent again. Yes, Hugh says. Because without it, justice becomes performance. The audience claps loudly. Sunny raises a hand. Let's slow down. Whoopi jumps in. Hugh, you're clearly frustrated. I am, Hugh admits. Because nuance is being treated like evasion. Joy interjects. Or maybe it is evasion. Hugh turns to her. If I were evading, I wouldn't be sitting here. The audience laughs and applauds. Sunny presses again. Some viewers feel you're more concerned about your right to speak than others' right to feel safe. Hugh responds immediately. Speech is how safety is negotiated. Sunny shakes her head. That sounds theoretical. It's practical, Hugh says. Silence doesn't resolve conflict. It freezes it. Whoopi nods slightly. There's truth there. Sunny doesn't concede. But unchecked speech can cause harm. Unchecked power causes more, he replies. The audience reacts loudly. Whoopi raises her voice slightly. All right, let's not start ranking harms. Sunny looks directly at Hugh. Do you believe you should ever step back and let others speak without response? Yes, Hugh says. When I have nothing meaningful to add. Sunny counters. And when someone says your words hurt them? Hugh answers carefully. Then I listen. And if I agree, I change. If I don't, I explain. Joy scoffs. That sounds exhausting. Hugh smiles faintly. Democracy is. The audience laughs and claps. Sunny pauses, then says, You're very confident in your position. I'm confident in my process, he replies. Sunny narrows her eyes slightly. And you don't see how that confidence can feel like dismissal? Hugh tilts his head. I see how disagreement has been rebranded as disrespect. The audience erupts again. Whoopi lets it go for a moment, then steps in. Okay, we're circling something important here. Sunny nods. We are. Whoopi continues. This isn't just about Hugh. It's about how we talk to each other now. Sunny agrees, but adds, and who bears the cost when those conversations go wrong? Hugh listens, then says, and whether we still believe people can speak in good faith. A brief silence follows. The audience is unusually quiet. Sunny finally says, Some people don't trust good faith anymore. Hugh responds softly. That's what worries me most. Whoopi exhales. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about what happened after this interview was announced, and the reaction before Hugh even sat down. The audience applauds as the cameras pull back slightly, the tension no longer just personal, but cultural, hanging heavy in the studio. The applause fades more slowly this time, mixed with murmurs as the audience senses the conversation is reaching its final stretch. Sunny straightens her notes, then looks directly at Hugh. Sunny says, Before you even walked out here today, there was reaction. Strong reaction. Hugh nods. I was told. Whoopi jumps in. People were already arguing online about what you might say. Sunny continues. Hashtags, clips from old interviews, headlines questioning why you were even invited. A few audience members murmur knowingly. Hugh exhales. That's part of what I was referring to earlier. Sunny presses. But you understand why people felt frustrated, right? For some, it felt like the show was giving space to someone they already decided was part of the problem. Yes, Hugh says. I understand the frustration. I don't agree with the conclusion. Joy interjects. Some would say your disagreement proves the point. Hugh turns to her, or disproves the assumption that conversation is pointless. The audience applauds, though it's more restrained now, thoughtful. Sunny leans forward. Let's talk about after. Because this conversation doesn't end when the cameras stop. No, Hugh agrees. It rarely does. Sunny says, there will be clips. Headlines. Short quotes without context. Hugh gives a small, knowing smile. I'm sure there already are. Whoopi chuckles softly. Trust me, there are. Sunny grows serious again. Some people will say you held your ground. Others will say you talked over pain. Hugh nods. Both can be true for different viewers. Sunny pauses. Does that bother you? Hugh thinks for a moment. It used to. Now I think it's inevitable. Joy asks, do you think you'll change how you speak publicly after today? Hugh answers honestly. I'll choose my words carefully, as always. But I won't abandon clarity for comfort. The audience reacts, some applause, some quiet tension. Sunny responds, comfort isn't the goal. Nor is fear, he replies. Whoopi raises her hands slightly. All right. Sunny looks at Hugh. If someone watching felt hurt by something you said today, what would you say to them? Hugh's tone softens. I'd say I hear you. I respect your experience. And I hope you'll believe me when I say disagreement isn't rejection. A few audience members nod. Someone claps softly. Sunny follows up. And if someone watching feels relieved by what you said? Hugh answers. I'd tell them not to use my words as a shield. Think for yourself. That draws a surprised reaction, then applause. Whoopi smiles. That might be the most responsible thing you've said all morning. Hugh laughs quietly. Low bar. Sunny allows herself a brief smile, then turns serious again. After today, you'll trend for a few hours. Maybe a day. Then something else will replace it. Yes, Hugh says. Outrage has a short attention span. Joy adds, but the damage can last longer. True, he replies. Which is why accuracy matters. Sunny nods slowly. Some people will say you won this exchange. Hugh shakes his head. If this was about winning, we all lost. The audience applauds, more unified now. Whoopi leans forward. I'll say this. I don't agree with you on everything. Hugh smiles. I'd be disappointed if you did. Whoopi continues. But I appreciate that you stayed in the conversation. Sunny adds, even when it got uncomfortable. Yes, Hugh says. Especially then. The audience applauds again, louder. Sunny turns toward the camera. These conversations are messy. They're emotional. And they don't fit neatly into clips. She looks back at Hugh. But they're necessary. Hugh nods. I agree. Whoopi closes it out. All right. Hugh Grant, everyone. The audience stands in partial applause. Not thunderous, not hostile, but charged with mixed feeling. Hugh nods to the crowd, gives a brief wave, and settles back as the applause fades. As the camera pulls wider, Sunny leans slightly toward Whoopi, microphone still live. This one's going to live online for a while. Whoopi nods. Oh, it already is. Later that day, clips circulate. Hugh saying incorrect, Sunny pushing back, the audience reacting. Comment sections split. Some praise Hugh for staying calm. Others accuse him of missing the point. Think pieces appear within hours. Tweets argue over tone, intent, accountability. By the next morning, Hugh's name trends again. This time alongside debates about free speech, responsibility, and whether real dialogue is still possible on daytime television. And viewers are left arguing long after the show ends. Now we want to hear from you. Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.